Hello all and welcome to All Red. There's danger on the horizon. Somebody call the ambulance, but it's not for me. It might be for my rivals. We are talking about who has the most dangerous match this weekend between Liverpool, Manchester City, and Arsenal. Or should we say Forest, because Forest are neck and neck with Arsenal, and they are clashing this weekend. And it's going to be a very, very interesting weekend, I believe. Liverpool have the most favorable matchup, obviously, as Southampton sit at the bottom of the table with just 4 points. That is not even enough to close the gap between Liverpool and Manchester City, who sit in second place, 5 points behind Liverpool, and have to come up with a thorn in the side, if you will, in Tottenham this weekend. Now, the only redeeming factor here is that we are at the end, or almost to the end, of an international break, which typically Liverpool fans are a little bit PTSD about. Even though Liverpool's record after international breaks is actually pretty good. They have only, let me give it to you right now, and it doesn't include this season, but they've played 30 games since 2015. After the international break, they've won 19, they've drawn 8, and only lost 3. So that's pretty good, and that includes games against Arsenal, games against City. So I think we have PTSD because we just don't play well, and a lot of those wins, I think, were probably last gasp winners. So the only redeeming factor here is that Liverpool are the only one of the 3 not playing at home. So Liverpool will have to go away to St. Mary's Stadium, while Manchester City are at the Etihad and Arsenal are at the Emirates. Let's talk about each one individually, each match individually, some history there, and then we will decide together, because you're going to put your thoughts in the comments, we will decide together who has the toughest match at the weekend, and then we'll go from there, and we'll hope that the results go the right way and favor Liverpool. So let's start with Liverpool, Southampton. And by the way, Liverpool are the only one of the 3 to play on Sunday. So Arsenal play first. This is my time, not yours, probably, here in the States. But Arsenal play first. They play Forest first on Saturday, my morning. I think your afternoon, most of you. And then after that, it is City, Tottenham. And so Liverpool will be sitting there on Sunday, knowing exactly what has happened the day before. And, you know, they get an extra day, right? They get an extra day. It's not the early game on a Saturday after the international break, which is good. Thankful for that. So they do get an extra day. They get to see how the results play out. Not that I don't think that really affects, it doesn't affect slot. I know that. But it might affect the players a little bit. But let's look at Liverpool versus Southampton, because I think this is the most favorable matchup out of the 3 for Liverpool, because Southampton have been so poor this season. Now, Southampton are poor. They have 4 points, and they've only won 1 match this season. But that match was just 2 match weeks ago when they won at home. That's, I think, a key factor here. They found a way to win at home, and they beat Everton. So it's not like they beat a giant, but they did find a way to win at home against Everton back on November 2nd. So, you know, that's relatively fresh. After that, they lost to Wolves. So, you know, there's that. But Southampton did go into the Etihad, and they nearly pulled something off magically. After it was a 1-0 win for City. But that's a pretty good result for Southampton, especially this year, to go in and to only lose 1-0 at the Etihad. Now, that was a game where, surprisingly, the possession percentages were not that skewed. Southampton possessed for 43% of that game, which is pretty incredible. City outplayed them pretty much everywhere on the pitch, but Southampton held their own in that game, and that was back only less than a month ago. So what I'm saying is Southampton are not. It's not like they're getting blown out every week, right? Listen to this: they won 1-0 against Everton. They only lost 1-0 to Southampton. They lost by a goal to Leicester at home. That was a 3-2 loss. They lost to Arsenal at the Emirates 3-1. Not terrible. And then they drew to Ipswich at home. They lost by 3 to Manchester United. That's probably the worst. That's honestly, I'm not joking. That's probably the worst result they've had this season, to lose 3-0 at home to Manchester United. And then they only lost 1-0 to Newcastle away at St. James Park. So, these are results that are not like, wow, Southampton's getting blown out. They're getting destroyed. They just can't win. They're just having a really hard time of winning. And like I said, 4 points. 4 points after 11 matches is really, really poor. They are certainly looking like a definite relegation team. They're 4 points back from Ipswich, but to get out of that relegation zone. But man, they have been by far the worst team this season. Now, we do need to look at Liverpool and how they've been playing, because that's important as well. They are coming into this match top of the table. They were probably in their best form before the international break, but the international break is kind of the great reset, as it were, because everybody kind of goes away and they don't get to spend time together. They lose that momentum, and then, they come back and it's kind of almost like the season starts over. So Liverpool are coming into this match. They're hot, but if we look at the only match that Liverpool have lost this season, it was actually at Anfield. They've performed pretty well away from home. Obviously, they've been grinding out results, but recently they beat Wolves 2-1 at the Molineux. They beat Crystal Palace by a goal at Selhurst Park. I'm looking at the away matches. Drew to Arsenal at the Emirates, and then the last 2 games have been at home. So Liverpool beat Brighton 2-1 at Anfield, and then they beat Aston Villa 2-0 at Anfield as well. And then we have all the Champions League matches as well. But we're only looking at Premier League because it's just a different beast. So, the trend here is that Liverpool should absolutely 100% win this game. But for Liverpool fans, if you've been watching Liverpool for more than 4 or 5 years, you know that there's a history of coming into a match like this where Liverpool are on top and they're playing the bottom dweller. And it's just, in the past, it's been hard for Liverpool to get up for a game like this. We play down to our opponents at times. And so this might be different under Slot. I'm really curious to see how Arneslot comes out in this one, because I think there is a chance that, Southampton could come in and surprise. There's also a chance that this could be a blowout. So we shall see on that one. I feel pretty good about Liverpool's chances against Southampton. Let's move over to Manchester City versus Tottenham, okay? This, I think, is the toughest match. I put this one in red. I've got red lines on here because I think Manchester City have the most dangerous matchup this weekend. Look at the recent results. We didn't look at the recent results for Liverpool versus Southampton. The last time that Liverpool faced Southampton, it was a 4-4 draw at the end of last season. At the end of the 2023 season, which was 2 seasons ago. And Southampton came in and just absolutely, really crushed Liverpool. Liverpool came back twice in that one for a 4-4 draw. Pretty poor. Outside of that, Liverpool have handled Southampton pretty well. But back over to Man City and Tottenham. Look at these recent results. These are so interesting. And that's why I called Spurs kind of the thorn in the side of Manchester City, because Spurs are not afraid to come into a match against City and just go all out and go for the win. I highlighted the 3-3 draw against City for City versus Spurs, because that was a game at the Etihad. And it was a game where, middle of a Premier League title race. It wasn't like, City had run away with it. It was in December, the 3rd of December. So similar time of year. Manchester City drew 3-3 with Spurs at the Etihad. It wasn't that long ago. And then look at these other results. So Spurs 1-0 against City in February of 23. That was at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And then 4-2 back in January 2023. That was an interesting match because Spurs actually had a 2-0 lead at halftime, and City came back in that one, obviously, and scored 4 goals, but, still dangerous. And then, of course, the Etihad in February of 2022, Spurs grind out a 3-2 win over City. So Spurs have a history of just absolutely coming in and shocking Manchester City. And I love it because I want them to do that this weekend. I think this matchup right now, the way that City are playing, and Spurs are not playing well either, but Spurs are going to be desperate. Spurs are going to come into this one, and they are going to want an absolute win. They currently sit in 10th, so if Spurs were to drop more points, they're going to be in trouble. I mean, they're going to keep going down that table because it's tight all the way down. Spurs have right now 16 points, and then below them, it's Brentford, Bournemouth, Manchester United, all with 16 and 15 points as well. So Spurs really cannot afford another loss. They need to come out with at least a point in this one. They will want 3 points. I think they'll believe they can get 3 points with the way that Manchester City are playing, and they're going to smell blood in the water. Manchester City have been really, really poor across all competitions for the past month. So this is one where I think Spurs can absolutely come in. They can get a result, whether it's a point or whether it's a win against Manchester City at the Etihad. Let's move over to Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. Arsenal coming into this one, again, in somewhat of a poor form. They just have not been able to get a result in the last month. They are kind of in the same, form as City. Listen to this. Arsenal have not won a Premier League match since October 5th of 2024. Their last win was 3-1 over Southampton. And that's just poor, guys. It's really poor for Arsenal. They lost 2-0 to Bournemouth, and then they drew with Liverpool. They lost to Newcastle, and then they drew with Chelsea. So Arsenal have been poor alongside of City, which is just delicious. Delicious. And this is a game where Arsenal they have to get 3 points here. Arsenal have to get 3 points. They are currently sitting 9 points back from Liverpool. And if Arsenal drop points, if they draw against Nottingham Forest, or if they lose against Nottingham Forest, and Liverpool end up beating Southampton, that's going to be kind of game over for their title hopes this season. And by the way, they've got Chelsea kind of breathing down their necks. Actually, Chelsea are currently ahead of them in the table on goal difference, but they've got Chelsea, they've got Nottingham Forest. If Nottingham Forest come in and beat Arsenal here, Arsenal are dropping out of the top 4, and they're probably looking at being behind Nottingham and Brighton, and maybe even Fulham, Newcastle, Aston Villa. There's tons and tons of teams that will want to come in and get a piece of that top 4. Because currently it's looking like Chelsea they're hungry for it, and they believe they can get top 4. And so Arsenal are in a dangerous position coming up against a very stalwart team in Forest. Now, this game is at the Emirates, and in the past, Arsenal have dealt with Nottingham Forest. Really no issues. The one time was May of 2023 when Nottingham Forest beat Arsenal at their own home stadium, at the Forest Stadium, the City Ground. But this is a totally different Forest team. This is a Nottingham Forest team that is the only team in Europe to beat Liverpool this season, 1-0. It's the only team. And they did it in a game where, and this is what Nottingham Forest have been doing. They go into a game and they just don't care about possession at all. They just don't. Listen to this. Watch this. So Nottingham Forest, if we look at their results, Nottingham Forest have beat Liverpool, and we're going to look at that fixture because that was at Anfield. Look at the stats here. This is 70% possession to Liverpool, Nottingham Forest with 30% possession. They win 1-0. Now, there's another interesting result here on the table. I want to look at it. it is Forest. Actually, I think it's the Forest. I think it was the Forest versus Arsenal match, 1-0. And it was 80%. Arsenal possessed for 80% of that game to Nottingham Forest 20. And Nottingham Forest just found a way to win. And that's similar to what they're doing this season. So Nottingham Forest is a team right now that can come in, they can sit back for 80 minutes and not possess really at all, and then bam, hit you on the counter. And that's going to be dangerous because Arsenal are not in a position where they can afford a draw. So Arsenal are going to be going all out to score from the get-go. And if Nottingham Forest can sit back and defend and hit them on the counter, this could be a very difficult match. So that's why I put yellow around this one. If I could rank these three, I think City have the most challenging matchup of the three. I think it's Arsenal second, and then I think it's Liverpool third away to Southampton. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you think is going to happen this weekend? I'm curious. I'm curious to know what other people are thinking. I think it's going to be a very, very fun weekend. I hope it's fun because if it is, that means Liverpool have won and somebody else here, maybe both teams, have dropped points. Let me know what you think in the comments, and as always, up the Reds.
Yeah, of course.